Welcome to Retire Coast, where we discuss all things retirement, life on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and your financial welfare. Bill Anderson, your host, is a serial entrepreneur having created many successful businesses and holds a real estate broker's license, speaks about personal experiences with each topic. Listen, learn, and improve the quality of your life.
Welcome back to Retire Coast series on starting a business after retirement. I hope you've listened to the first episode of my podcast on this topic, and it's the ultimate guide to starting a business after retirement. We have codified this. In other words, it is also part of a blog series which contains a number of articles, up to 5 so far as I'm speaking with you now. And what we've done is we've taken the first one, the ultimate guide, and given you a basic overview of what it's like to even consider starting a business after you've retired. And then we've gone through some of the different stages. We talked about how to finance that business and how about naming the business, what kind of business do you actually want to get into? So we've taken it step by step by step. There are thousands and thousands of words. We're not even finished yet. We still have the marketing and some other elements to complete. But what we did just complete is our article that has the same name as this topic today, which is Best Step-by-Step Guide to Starting a Business After Retirement. And at this point, this is article number 5. We wanted to take you step by step through that process. So by the time you reached article 5, you've already decided that you're going to do a business. You know what type of business it's going to be. You know the name of that business, and you're pretty much ready to push the button and do some of the most necessary things, such as forming that business as a limited liability company or a subchapter S or a C corporation. And we're going to help you through that process. Now, Retire Coast has not been involved in this before, and what I'm saying is we have not actually taken the position that we can do something for you other than give you information, and this is our first effort at it. Now, it's not our first effort at doing these things for people for a modest fee. We've been doing that for years through our office, but we haven't offered it to people on the internet. So this article not only goes through all the things that you need to do, but it tells you how to do them. But if you want, we can do almost all of those things for you. So let me get started with this if you're kind of ready to talk about it. And before I do, I want to just backtrack a little bit. And the idea of starting a business after retirement might be thrilling for some and scary for others. But you should know that there are more people that start businesses after retirement than there are people that start them before retirement. And that's true. There's been a number of surveys about this, which means that people in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s decided to start their businesses. When you add them all up, they're not equal to the number of people that started their business after they have left their primary employment or, maybe retirement. Maybe they actually had an official retirement party and now they want to do something different for a whole variety of reasons. And that first article, The Ultimate Guide, goes into all those reasons. So if you have been on the fence and you've gone through our other articles and you think you're ready to go, then let's tell you about how easy it actually is, especially when you have a facilitator that knows how to do this for you, which is Retire Coast or others. But we're giving you a roadmap, essentially, with this step-by-step guide on how to take the actual steps and make the commitment. This is where you start to spend money, not necessarily a lot of it, but you're going to make a commitment to start this business. So the first thing we need to do is come up with the company name, and by now you probably should have done that. So what we'll do is find out if that company name is available in the state in which you want your business to be formed. Now, just going back to one of the previous articles and remind you that you should consider forming the actual legal entity in a state in which you are going to transact the majority of your business, or preferably that's the state where you live in. There are some benefits to you for doing that. creating a corporation in another state that you don't live in, well, there's no real benefits there. In some cases, you might save a few dollars. For example, in California, they charge an $800 fee every year in addition to the cost to start it up, and that's if you don't make any money, or you do make any money, it's irrelevant. You still pay taxes on top of that. But in many states, it's a lot less expensive. So some people in California think, oh, I'll just incorporate in Delaware or in Nevada or someplace. You save no money. There are other legal ramifications involved, which we discussed in the other articles. So just going forward here, you need to come up with a name. Now, if you haven't come up with a name yet, that's fine, because this article talks about the purpose of brand identity, the simplicity and memorial ability. In other words, people remember your name, the uniqueness and the ability, some legal considerations, make sure you're not stepping on somebody else, the target audience appeal, and on the internet, you want to have the search engine optimization, which we'll get into a little bit later on, but basically you want people to find you on the internet. So all of those elements are discussed in here. They're very important when you choose a name. Now, some people may decide, oh, my name is John Smith, so I want to have John Smith and Associates. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. It may not be the best thing to do, and our article discusses some key reasons why. If you have already read our article about wrapping up your business, the end game, so to speak, and you want to be able to sell that business, be sure that you're not, connected to it. You're not sewn into the fabric of that business, because the value of the business is going to be in large part due to your participation. And if you're trying to back out, the value will drop off. So if you name that business with your own name, then the business has to change the name. Some people may not recognize the new name. There may be some difficulties getting your customers or your clients to reuse you. So if you want to sell it for the most money, and again, we get some pretty deep into this kind of thing. So just consider that, but consider what people remember, other names. But you might want to do an internet search. That's what we suggest, and find out that if anybody else in your area has your name, at least the way you want to spell it. Now, there are some ways that you can still do business with that name. If somebody has it as a corporation, you can do it as a doing business as, but you might also be conflicting with another business. So that's just something to look at. And we, as I said, this article, the written article, gets more into that. But you've got to decide next what type of business you want to have. Is it going to be a limited liability company, as many people are using today? Will it be a subchapter S corporation or a C corporation? Now, C corporations typically those are the big companies. Those are the large Fortune 500 companies. Anyone can start a C corporation, but it's a shareholder-owned business, and it's basically double taxation. Again, our article explains this. The simple thing to do is to create an LLC. And I would suggest, if you were thinking about doing a sole proprietorship, such as dog walking, you really don't need to get fancy. It will improve your business prospects by creating a limited liability company. And the cost for that it's usually a one-time thing, depending on your state. Some states charge an annual renewal fee, some don't. I'm in Mississippi, and there's no annual renewal fee in Mississippi. So it's easy to do that with the LLC. And we can do that for you. We can create the LLC for you in any of the state that you're in, or you can follow the instructions and you can do it on your own. There are states that require a designator, or somebody that they can contact, an agent, if you are not located in that state. So, for example, if you live in California and you're starting up a business in Mississippi, maybe it's just a rental property business, you create the LLC in Mississippi, but you need a registered agent in Mississippi, and that's because the state wants to have someone to contact if there's any type of legal action or any changes. Maybe you forgot to pay or you're going to do your annual report and your business is subject to being closed. Those kind of things. You need to check the name availability. Of course, once you get to that point that you've decided what the name is going to be, we need to check it and find out if it's actually available. Now, sometimes if it's not available specifically the way you've written it, you can make some minor changes to it and try that and see if it works, or just put another name in there altogether. But I suggest that you pick 2 or 3 names before you go to that trouble. We can also check the names for you and make sure that the name is actually acceptable to the state. Now, there's something about the designations on the name too. When you do create a business, you're going to have to say if it's John Smith Associates LLC, you have to have the LLC on that name, or you can't use it. That's the legal name, is John Smith LLC. If you leave it off, it's just John Smith, and you cannot use LLC on your name. That's just a simple thing, and again, we have that in here in our article. And as I mentioned, you don't want to register out of state, although some people do. Some people live in one state and they have their rental property, for example, in Mississippi here. I see this all the time, and they create an LLC here in Mississippi, and that's fine. You can do that. But you may have to register as a foreign corporation in the state in which you live if that state requires that information. California is a good example. I keep throwing that out because I used to live there and I own properties and had LLCs in other states, and California just won't let a dollar out of their fingers. So in that case, if you want to do business in California and also in another state, you have to register as a foreign corporation either in the state you're doing your business in, setting up your business, or in California, one or the other. It's mostly about the income and how the income flows for taxes. Again, we have all of that written out for you. So the thing you do after you get the name and after the business is then entered in the state records and you have a certificate saying that you are an official new business in your state, then the next thing that you need to do, or sometimes even before you are able to register, it depends on your state, you need to have an agreement. You need to have a document. The documents have different names. The limited liability document, depending on your state, is either an agreement or a document called Articles of Organization. Now, basically what this document is, for a limited liability company, is it explains everything about the company. When it starts, when it ends, who's allowed to do banking for it, who's going to take care of the taxes, doing the tax returns, who's allowed to be a member, what the members own, because the members are going to own a percentage of the total value of the company, how much money each member has to put in, all of the details that your agreement would have. For example, let's say you have a meeting with 2 people that you want to bring into this business, and you're all going to be equal partners, for example. You discuss the terms and conditions that you want to have in your article. One person says, well, I'd like to transfer this into my wife's name. Do I have the ability to do that? Well, of course you do. You just put it in there. Those are the things that will come up in your discussion. Now, we also have some examples of articles of organization so you don't miss anything. There's some key elements in there that the states require, and they're in that sample, and that's in the blog article, so that you don't miss those key things in there. But there are a lot of other things you might want to put in. For example, if one of the members passes away and does not have a spouse, who gets the property? Well, maybe they have a will and that takes care of it, but you might want to just list it in there and say, well, Mary Jones, the daughter, gets it. Or you might want to say, well, I don't want to vote anymore. I want to turn the voting over to my husband. So those things would all be in that article. Now, you don't need to get into so much detail to start with. Just come up with a basic article that makes sense, essentially, to a bank or any other finance company that understands what's going on with that business and understands who owns what. You will also be attaching some things to it, which would be the attachment of property that business may own, For example, you'll also indicate in the attachment how much each person has put into the business. And then you'll start to do minutes of meetings that you're going to have in the future for discussions of different things that are important, and you want to memorialize those things. Now, one of the things that you probably will need to do if you're dealing with physical property, such as, say, a rental property, you need to create a minutes of a meeting that indicate that you or someone else or all three of you are authorized to sign for the purchase of this property and describe the property. And then everybody signs that. So that's the document that the bank is going to need along with your full agreement. And then you'll be doing these things in the future. So once you do one, the other ones are easy, and we can do one for you. We always do a sample one for you so you can take a look at it. They're very, very simple. You're not an attorney, probably, if you're listening to this, and you don't need to be an attorney to manage your document. It's really your document, and in most cases, no one actually gets a copy of it unless you choose to give it to them, such as a bank for financing something. This is an internal document. Some states want you to upload it onto their website, which is fine. Just remember to keep it current. Other states don't care if you upload it or not. You just need to have it if you're asked for it by someone who needs it. So it's important to do that one. If you are forming a subchapter S corporation, which is a kind of a hybrid between the C corporation and the LLC, in the sense that a subchapter S can be a partnership type of corporation too. Even though it's shareholder owned, it can be a partnership for tax purposes. And some of these things are really kind of designed in part for tax purposes. Now, the limited liability company, as you've learned in earlier articles, is a protection mechanism. That's the term, limited liability, so that if someone comes after your business, the liability is limited to the business itself and not to the individuals, unless the individuals have done something that has caused a problem and they did it intentionally. I don't want to get into the legal discussion here, but the LLC is a good protection mechanism. You do not have those protection mechanisms in the subchapter S corporation or the C corporation per se, because they can sue the corporation, and if you're the boss making the decisions, you can also be sued in some cases. Again, this is not the time for a whole legal discussion about it, but there are some good reasons. The other thing about the LLC is that for tax purposes, the income that you earn in the LLC flows right through to your 1040 form. So you're not going to be turning in a tax return form for the LLC that has to pay taxes. You will do a tax return form, but it's what they call a K-1. It just says, government, I made $10,000 in this business here, and then I'm going to add that income into my 1040 form and pay it there, as opposed to paying it through the LLC tax return. So getting back to the corporation, the corporation has a different document. It's called Articles of Incorporation. It's very similar to the Articles of Organization, but it's very specific to corporations. And that includes the business name, the number of authorized shares, the registered agent information, directors and offices information, who they are, where they live, and there are some other requirements possibly from your state. Also, corporate bylaws are required, and this is a second document, and that one would have the corporate rules, the board of director roles, responsibilities, officers' duties, shareholders' meetings and voting procedures, corporate guidance, policies, those kinds of things. While with the LLC document, all of that is incorporated together, but you have to break these things out for a corporation. And states do require that you have these documents, and you may have to upload those when you do the name and registration for the corporation. There's quite a few things. Now, our document tells you, or our article tells you what has to be in these documents also, so you won't miss anything if you read our article. And then you can, again, Read the other articles too. By the time you get to this one, we've given you a little more information to help you make a decision about what type of business structure that you want. But you'll be able to make that decision with all the knowledge that we've provided to you. Now, let me just stop for a second and cover sole proprietorship. Now, that's basically you've just decided that you're going to start a dog walking business. And I keep throwing dog walking business out because it's very simple. I mean, you could do a lawn cutting business too, something that doesn't require you to go out and issue stock and that kind of thing. And maybe it's just you doing the business, in which case a sole proprietorship would work. Sole meaning you, just you. But there are some potential issues that you can resolve if you decide to go with an LLC rather than a sole proprietorship. Now, you can start a sole proprietorship today. Just go next door and cut the lawn and charge the person for it. If you are doing it for less than $600 in a year, you don't even have any reporting to do. If you have a business that generates more than $600 a year, regardless of whatever type it is, you have to report to the IRS. And that's what brings you up to the radar, and that's what says, hey, I'm really in business. The thing with the sole proprietorship is there's nothing formal about it at all. And if you do something in your sole proprietor business, although you can get insurance, and we recommend that, you can be sued personally for any activities that occur. Maybe, you ran over somebody's pet bunny or something in your yard with your lawnmower, and they want to sue you for that. They can not only sue you as an individual, but they can take what you own personally. They can even take your house if you have not much of a mortgage on it, for example, or your car or your truck. There's nothing to stop someone from coming after you. That's the main reason most people create a limited liability company when they do start a business is because they want to limit the liability. So I think that you should seriously consider the differences before you decide to start with a sole proprietorship and open yourself up for potential legal litigation. I always have a saying that I use, and that is that if you have something, you can bet there's somebody else out there that wants it. Now, a little paranoia goes a long way when you're starting your business. You want to protect yourself. Now, we'll get into insurance, for example, but there are some things you can do ahead of time, and one of the key things is really this limited liability thing. So I don't mean to, keep beating on this. It's just very important. But I wanted to cover what the sole proprietorship is so you knew the difference. Again, you can read that in our blog article, too, about this at the same title as this one, which is looking at all the different things you need to do to start a business. So now the next thing we're going to talk about is the marketing plan. Now, I'm not going to get into depth on this marketing plan because we've discussed it in other articles also. I just want to tell you here that you need a marketing plan. Now, it might seem daunting for some of you who've never done it before, but it's really not hard to do. I mean, at the very minimum, you can sit down at the kitchen table with a pen and paper, if anybody does that anymore, and just write down the things that you think you'd like to do with marketing, how you would like to get the word out. Just from the knowledge that you have right now, maybe you didn't work in marketing before. Maybe you had nothing to do with it. You worked in a steel mill, for example. So you may not have a lot of ideas, but your wife might, or your husband might, or your kids might. So, bounce them around a little bit. You're not, an expert yet, but we're going to get you there with our articles. So that's the basis of this. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you sample marketing plans so that you can essentially fill in the blanks. That way it gives you each of the elements in a marketing plan that you need to consider. So what we did is we put in a small marketing plan example, Sally's dog walking service, for example, and we talk about the different things you need. So the first thing is, or one of the first things is, and we have a checklist too, your logo. Everybody needs a logo, right? You might need a flyer or some type of way that you want to communicate visually to someone what your business name is. So coming up with a nice logo, and we talk about how to do that, how to come up with a logo. We can do that for you, but we can also discuss with you how to do that. And you come up with a logo that matches your name and has, it's the right visual for what you're trying to communicate. And then the next thing, again, not necessarily in order, but website. Everybody in the world needs a website. You just have to, because as soon as somebody hears about your business or you talk about your business, they want to see if you're for real, unless they know you. So they're going to go to the internet and they're going to, put your information in there and go, oh, there's no website here. I guess that person's not real. And that's just the way we think today. So why fight it? If you are doing this in retirement, that means that you're no very young person here. I'm talking to a lot of older adults here, seniors, for example. And many people in that age range were not exposed to computers early in their working career. So they don't know that much about it. Maybe they have a laptop at home, but they've never actually created or designed anything. So creating a website is something new. They don't necessarily understand the technology behind it. They only see what they see with their eyes. In this case, to create a website, you need a little knowledge. You need to know a little bit about how it's created, even though you don't need to create it. Retire Coast can do that, or someone else can do that for you. But we're going to give you some insight here, and in this article a little bit. We're going to get into it. We're also going to talk a lot more about it in our marketing article. That's the key thing. That will be released soon. Maybe by the time you listen to this, it'll already be out there. So we want to also talk about the email address that you use. So you can get a Gmail address, or you can get AOL address, and you can put all kinds of funny things before the @ sign. You can put down John Smith Grocery at AOL.com, and that's perfectly fine. But it doesn't look professional. And depending on what you're looking for, if you want to be a consultant, for example, it's much better that you use the name of your business. So, for example, let's say we have John Smith Consulting, and we're going to have a website that says johnsmithconsulting.com, for example. Now, if you have an email address out there that you want to be professional, you've got a website already, then you can have John Smith at John Smith Consulting. So that at .com, you can have that johnsmithconsulting.com after the ampersand, which is that @ sign, and you can have your name in the front of it, or you can have the word connect, or you can have the word administrative, or something else. You can have several of these, by the way. They're all permitted and all included in whatever the cost package that you have. So you might want to have one with your name on it for a direct contact, and then you might want to have one for just information only. So it's information at johnsmithconsulting.com. And you can have 4 or 5 or 6 of these. And then you can arrange to have all of those go to the same place, so that when you go in and you look at your Google Mail, for example, all of those addresses flow right into there, and there's no way you can miss any of them. It's pretty cool. So again, all of that can be done for you, but you need to think about this, because the easy thing for people is to go out and get a Gmail address with some strange thing on it. And when I see that, it tells me that people didn't want to spend a few dollars to get the website. They didn't want to do the most professional way to do it. And a lot of times when people are soliciting my business, I won't respond if they're pretending to be a company with a Google or AOL or somebody else's there, because they didn't spend the few dollars it takes to get it done right. That's just my personal opinion. But a lot of people feel that way, and there's just no reason, if you're going to have a website, you can't start out and do it correctly. And that's all part of the package. We do that, and other people do that too. I just wanted to bring it up because most people don't even think about that. Also, if you decide to do email marketing, which means sending out blasts of emails to your own customers or to attract customers, you almost certainly need to have your own business email address. Otherwise, these things will end up going into the spam folders. And there are companies that do this email type of blast thing, and their emails are accepted because they won't do the junk mail stuff, and their addresses are accepted by Google. And that's where the email will come from. It'll come from your address, but theirs will be involved with it too. So I just thought I'd put that out there, and we'll get into more of this on the marketing side. You'll be ready to open a business checking account at some point after you have completed the tasks we talked about a little bit earlier, which is to file with the state. You'll get your certificate, and then you'll be official. One more step first before the business checking account. You need to obtain an IRS FEIN number, which is Federal Employment Tax Identification Number, and that is a number much like a Social Security number that is issued by the IRS for a business. That, of course, has to go onto your business tax return and on the business K-1 form if you are a partner in an LLC or a subchapter S corporation, for example. The bank will need that number. Anyone you do business with probably will need that number. Anyone that gives you credit will need that number. And some states require that number for you to be able to come back in and do the state tax returns also. So we can help you get that number, or you can work that out on your own. We discuss that in our blog articles as well. So assuming you have that already, and you've got your articles of organization, if that's the case for an LLC, and so you're ready to go down to the bank. That's what the bank's going to need to be able to open up an account for you, or a bank or credit union. You can do it online with a financial institution. They all require the same kinds of information, and they may ask you to upload it. If you're opening an account with an online bank or an online credit union or some other financial institution, and those are the documents you're going to need to have ready. Probably a good idea to put them all together and scan them as a package so that you've got a record in your archives. Then you can send the whole package over when someone needs it, whether it's a bank or whatever, or you can just print that package and take it in if you're going to go into a physical location. There's one more thing that a bank may need, and that's a certificate of good standing, which is issued by the state. Basically, let's say that you started your corporation 4 years ago. Well, it's been a long time, so in order to make sure that you're still hanging around and you're still paying your taxes and you are doing your annual reports with the state will issue a certificate of good standing at your request. Now, we can get that for you also, but a lot of banks will require that in their checklist. So we have a banking checklist in here. Articles of organization, certificate of good standing, your federal tax ID number, your agreements, minutes of the meeting, partnerships that approve opening a bank account. So you have to have that in there too. That's one of those minutes I talked about earlier that you use if you're going to buy a property, but you need one to open up a bank account. You need your initial deposit, of course, and then they're going to need your driver's license or other ID. It's interesting. A lot of people that start businesses think, oh, well, it's all on the business, so it's nothing personal. It's always going to be personal until you've been in business for many, many years, and that's when the bank starts looking at the business separately from you. So then there will be, some information on who's going to sign the checks and then ordering checks. And let me just give you a little pointer on ordering checks. The banks aren't the most cost-effective place to get checks. And also, you're sitting there looking through their book. You don't need that. They'll give you some temporary checks when you start. You can order checks from several different entities, and I ordered them actually from Costco, and you can pick out designs and colors and that information. Just make sure that when you get your checks that you have your phone number on the check and the address of the business and the business name, of course. You can also put your tax ID number on there, too, if you want to. Just make sure that it's complete so that they don't have to ask you for more information if you go to write a check. Now, most of us aren't going to be writing checks anymore. with one of my businesses where we send out several $100,000 a year in payments to our clients. We do an ACH transaction, which is basically an electronic transaction, and the client gets the money in 2 days. It's a lot easier. You've already got them preloaded in your bank account. You go online and you say, I want to pay Sally $100. And you click Sally for $100 and you push the button and it's gone. It comes out of your bank account. Now, that's a real easy way for a business to send money, and maybe the way that you should do it too. You might want to also think about setting up the bill pay function that they do so that you can pretty much eliminate paper checks. Try to just send money to vendors and others that you want to pay the bills with. So now let's just talk about the accounting and financial system that you're going to need. And I don't want to overwhelm you with this, so I won't. I'll just tell you that there is a free system online. It's called Wave Apps, WAVEAPPS.com. I don't get any money for telling you this, or about Quicken, for example, but Wave Apps is a free accounting system that's very easy to use for someone who's never used an accounting system. If you've tried to balance a checkbook, who does that anymore? You can do that with this. It's very simple. And you can download the transactions from your bank account, which are the payments and the deposits. They go into the system, and then you just use these little drop-down boxes and identify what every one of those numbers are. For example, let's say that you have the utilities automatically coming out of your bank account, and you'll see what that was. And you'll go, oh, that's electricity. So you drop down box and go electricity on there, and now you've told the system what it is. Now it has, it categorizes that for you, and then every month you can look at reports in there and find out how much money you spent on electricity for that month or for the year to date, for example. At the end of the year, if you've done a good job with this, then your accountant or your CPA can actually get in there. You can give them permission, and then they'll get everything that they need. You don't need any receipts or anything else. Just throw all those things into a box and save them someplace. You don't need to turn all that stuff over to your accountant. It'll save you hours and hours and hours of time. And the best part about it is it's free. So it's WAVEAPPS.com. Now, they used to allow you to download the bank information automatically, and somebody else bought them and said, no, we need to get some money for this. So they have a pro version and a pro version and an expert pro version. I don't know what it is. You don't really need any of that stuff. There is a cool thing that they do have. You can actually take credit cards there. So if you want to send out invoices, you can do it from this system very easily, and it remembers the people you sent them to. So if you want to send one again, you can do it even on an automated basis, and you can set that up through Wave Apps and another outside processor, which really is you don't even notice. And then you just send an invoice to somebody, and they can pay. You send the invoice by email, and they can pay with a credit card right away or a bank deposit, whatever they want. And I use that with a couple of my businesses, and it works out very well. So that's what you do for your accounting system. And I'm simplifying it a little bit, but there really isn't a whole lot more than that to it. Licenses and permits, that's another thing. Depends on where you're at. A lot of jurisdictions, local ones, require a business license, and they're usually not very much money. Sometimes they are, and maybe in some places they're also they're set up by the amount of dollar volume that you're going to generate there. Now, if it's an internet business, it's a little bit iffy. There may be probably nothing on the local side for that. But if there are you have a retail business, you have a bricks and mortar business, you almost certainly will need some type of a permit to operate there. You may need multiples. For example, if you have a bar, you're going to need a liquor license. You're going to need some other permits too. So you'll need to check into the licenses and permits that you're going to be required. I can tell you that where I am in Mississippi, there's a privilege tax for some businesses. It's very small. It's like $30 a year, and that's the only tax. Counties will tax you if you don't live in a city sometimes. Often the counties don't have a business license tax. States normally do not, but states do have other taxes, such as California. That $800 is a franchise tax that they charge everybody in the state. So these things just have to be checked into. It's not difficult, and you can read some information on our blogs about how to do that, and I think we have a program to help you check that too. Contracts and legal agreements. You've got your foundation documents. You've got your, articles of organization or your incorporation, and you've got your operating agreement for the LLCs and the bylaws, for example. But there may be other things. There may be a separate partnership agreement or a shareholder agreement. If you have employees, there might be an employee agreement or independent contractor agreement or a non-disclosure agreement or a non-compete agreement. These are all things you need to consider in your business before you actually get started. If you're going to use contractors, for example, and what you have is very unique, you might want them to sign a non-disclosure agreement. These are very simple, and we can provide those to you. There's some examples in our articles about some of these and what they are. Not every business needs all of them. Some businesses don't need any of those. Then there's customer and client agreements. There might be a service agreement. There's a sales agreement, terms and conditions. Now, on your website, you're going to need a terms and conditions, and these are essentially boilerplate. You can download one, or we can get one for you and install it if we're going to do your website for you. And that basically says that you're not responsible for anything that's the content that's on there. If someone takes something that you've said and they get hurt doing it or something, this clears you from that. It doesn't mean they can't sue you, but it basically means that you're going to win that suit. So it's very important. Privacy policy, also, everybody needs a privacy policy. And as I mentioned, the sales agreement. If you're selling something, you definitely need a sales agreement that basically says, hey, look, there's no warranty, or there is a warranty, and this is what it is, and this is how you get paid with a warranty. And you just need to lay all those things out. If you're doing lawns, for example, probably what you need is just a service agreement. When they agree to start working with you, you have an agreement, and maybe it is that they can just give you 1 week's notice or 2 weeks' notice to quit or something. But it's something that's normally held, kind of informally, because if Joey next door has been cutting the lawn and then you come along with your business, you want to be a little bit more formal about it. You want to make sure that you've reduced any potential liability down the road. It's not just about getting insurance. It's not just about getting that limited liability company. There's more to it than that. Then you have vendor and supplier agreements, purchase agreement, lease agreements, equipment agreement. You have financial investment agreements, for example, loan agreements, promissory notes, investor agreements. You may not need any of these things. People may use them with you, for example. You may have to sign a promissory note or a loan agreement if you're borrowing money, so you might not necessarily be pushing those agreements out, but you may be signing those agreements. Then you have intellectual property agreements, if you have any, trademark registration, copyright agreement, patent agreement, intellectual property agreement and assignment. And then there's insurance agreements. There's the business insurance policy, which I strongly suggest that you get, and we can help you with that too. And then a general liability waiver. Basically, you need to get everybody to indemnify you so that you're not running around out there just being exposed. And then for your exit strategy, you might need a buy and sell agreement and a dissolution agreement that you can do years in advance, or you can just wait and do those at the time. And now we're talking about insurance. So, boy, there's lots of insurance. But, for a lot of businesses, they just need the liability insurance. If you are a professional, for example, you're consulting, you can get an errors and omissions professional liability insurance. There is something called a business owner's policy. It's like a bundle package that includes general liability and property insurance if you have property. If you're working out of your home, the general liability insurance may be satisfactory. If you're driving around a truck and you're going to people's homes, there are other kinds of insurance. There's commercial insurance for you There's also commercial auto insurance that you can get. There's product liability insurance if you're selling something. Business interruption insurance is pretty good for you if there's a potential that something could happen. For example, if you lived in the fire area of California and you know that could possibly happen, if you had business interruption insurance, if your business was burned down, you would earn income from that insurance policy for whatever the term is on that. And then there's employment practices liability insurance. Before you hire anyone at all, you need to give serious consideration about whether you really need an employee or you need a contractor. And in any case, you're going to need some agreements. In our article, we give you a template for startup costs. Many businesses don't require a whole lot of dollars to start up. They are, for example, if you're going to do a dog walking business, maybe it's a few $100s. You have to buy some supplies and things. If you're going to do retail business with a store, obviously that's even larger. But you need to take a look at those key things that have nothing to do really with the purchase of goods to sell. And I'll just give you some idea of what's on our checklist here. So we've got, the name you need to choose for your business, registration, prepare the insurance formation documents, or the insurance and the formation documents, franchise tax fee, if there is one, license fees, minutes and resolutions, create your contracts, and create the client agreement, bylaws for the corporation, for example, marketing and branding, office equipment and supplies, legal and professional, software and subscriptions, and there's a few others. And these have nothing to do with the actual materials other than marketing, if you're going to be giving something away. It has nothing to do with buying the furniture or the windows for your building or any of those kinds of things. These are basically business structural costs, and then you can add all those other things on at your leisure, so that you eventually have a budget. And then we're going to be getting into the budget issue too. That'll be another article altogether. Now, we do have an article about the best financing. We talk about how to acquire financing for your business if you need it, and there are ways you can avoid it. We talk about credit cards and a lot of things like that in that particular one. So hopefully you've read that before you've listened to us, but if you haven't, you can go back and do that. Now, the good thing is that in the show notes for this podcast, we have a link to our Starting a Business After Retirement Index. And you can go to that index and click on it and find all of our articles in there, including our latest article that I just went through. And it has links to all of our products in there. So you can go in and check out and see what we charge to do whatever it is that you need to have done. And you can order from us or just do it yourself. Just follow our pattern here. It'll explain how to get some of these things done if you want to do it all on your own. So please come back to our podcasts. Listen to podcasts on other topics other than just starting a business and retirement, although that's the latest thing right now since it's a very popular topic. And we'll get into some other things that we do too. We have a good article about schools and how important schools are to property values in your area. So that applies to everybody as well. So please come to our podcast again, and also go to our website at retirecoast.com. That's retirecoast.com. And check out all of our articles about starting a business after retirement, and other articles, lifestyle articles, things about the Mississippi Gulf Coast, about real estate. We think you'll find a lot of things there that'll interest you. So we appreciate you coming to this podcast and hope that you will come to the next one. Thank you.